Every Day the Same Dream is a video game about the futility of modern working life. You play as a faceless office worker trapped in the never-ending loop of a working day. Each day begins the same, by waking up, kissing your wife goodbye, driving your car to work, finding your cubicle, and going home, only for the day to repeat itself. You can make small deviations, but every deviation results in the same outcome, the day repeating. The only way to win the game is to get your character to die. Bertocchini, the game's creator, describes the experience as a short existential game about alienation and refusal of labor. With only two controls, forwards and backwards, he achieves a remarkable insight. Life is the culmination of our decisions at key turning points, of when we proceed to go down certain paths and when we diverge. By going forwards, the day proceeds as usual. By going back, the player introduces disruption. Instead of walking into the office, you can turn around and discover a nature park. No matter what choice you make, however, the day repeats itself. Freedom is an illusion. You always end up back in the office, working on someone else's dream. Calling every day the same dream negative would be an understatement, but it's also possible to say that the game is not negative enough. Bertocchini released it back in 2009. Back then, a strict separation existed between work and home life. Today, it is almost utopian to watch your character leave the office, knowing that they are returning home for private time, relaxation and leisure, with no screens, no notifications, and no emails. The fact that a dystopia from 2009 can look like a utopia by 2023 says a lot about the degradation of our working culture. In the US, for instance, 76% of office workers check their emails after work in unpaid overtime. The pandemic only exacerbated these trends, blurring the boundaries between work and home, creating longer hours, loneliness, and mental health problems for a lot of people. Longer hours have been met by the imperative to be happy in the office at all times, particularly in large corporate settings such as law firms and accounting firms. Researchers at Harvard call this emotional labor. Gen Z call it toxic positivity. So how did we get here? In the 1920s, the workers' rights movement won a landmark struggle for a 40-hour work week. The slogan was 8 hours of work, 8 hours of leisure, and 8 hours of sleep. In 1926, Henry Ford, the then richest man in the world, implemented the policy at his factories. Ford became one of the first companies to end work on the weekend. Every man needs more than 1 day a week for rest and recreation, Ford said at the time. It is high time to rid ourselves of the notion that leisure for workmen is either lost time or a class privilege. The current crop of richest men disagree with this statement on the whole. Elon Musk publicly endorses extreme working hours.
And then just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in 80 to 100 hour weeks every week.
Gosh,
and
that's
then
a lot of work.
All those things improve the odds of success.
Okay.
I mean, if other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that in 1 year you will achieve what they achieve. You will achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve.
Of course, the scientific evidence points out that this statement is completely false. Numerous studies have shown that people become far less productive when working more than 40 hours a week. The reason is kind of obvious: you don't work well when you're stressed and tired. Musk himself reportedly works 120 hours a week.
Yeah, my workload went up from about, 70 to 80 hours a week to probably 120. So Yeah, I go to sleep, I wake up, I work, go to sleep, wake up, work, do that 7 days a week. I'll have to do that for a while. No choice. But I think once Twitter is set on the right path, I think it is a much easier thing to manage than SpaceX or Tesla. So,
Musk is the billionaire poster boy of what's often called the work hard, play hard lifestyle. At first, lifestyle seems glamorous until it becomes clear that none of the activities he engages in are actually relaxing in the full and deep meaning of the word. In reality, the elongation of working hours has been met by the acceleration of leisure. Accelerated leisure is the compression of leisure time to the detriment of leisure quality. Everyone wants calmness, tranquility, romance, fun, and socializing in their personal lives. With accelerated leisure, the promise goes, you can get all of these things at a fraction of the time, with the assistance of stimulants like drugs and alcohol, and even more stimulants like pornography and techno music. Accelerated leisure gives workers the illusion of free choice while trapping them into ever tighter systems of control. Like every day the same dream, the work week will repeat come Monday, regardless of how drunk or high the office worker becomes on the weekend. It might even repeat before then. At some corporate law firms, for example, it is common for Sunday to be a working day. The weekend too then is an illusion. The week never really ends at all. Going home is a myth. There's no home to go home to. Every second of time must be interrupted either by work or the numbing boredom of mass entertainment and adrenal stimulus. Entertainment is merely a bridge between work and work. God rested on the seventh day, but according to our friends in Silicon Valley, God was a slacker. Accelerated leisure is a form of permanent dissatisfaction. Writing about the entertainment mediums we find ourselves facing, Mark Fisher says, "No one is bored, but everything is boring." But accelerated leisure has a darker side too. Like fast food, it is cancerous and addictive. The drug use in corporate life leads into various other forms of addiction in private life. The modern worker might not escape the office by jumping off a cliff, but they do jump into a bar, a club, or a transactional romantic relationship. The task of doing does not end with the working day. Without deep leisure, our bodies remain in a constant state of stress, a fight or flight mode that contributes to conflict, emotional violence, angst, and abuse in our society. The worst result of accelerated leisure, however, is death. There have been numerous instances where interns have been found to have died after working very long shifts, sometimes 2 or 3 days in a row without rest. The media presents accelerated leisure as a form of rebellion. The Wolf of Wall Street, for instance, showed the work hard, play hard lifestyle as this glamorous, over-the-top sort of lifestyle where you can get anything that you want at any time of the day, and the excess itself becomes a visual spectacle, something that the viewer is drawn to and drawn in by. These activities are celebrated as transgressive, but in reality they cement the status quo. The long hours and the corporate culture are part of the status quo of our society. Partying and excessive drinking of alcohol maintains that culture rather than challenging it. Albert Camus, the French philosopher, takes a very different view of what rebellion means. The rebel, he writes, is someone who says no. A slave who has taken orders all of his life suddenly decides that he cannot obey some new command. What does he mean by saying no? He means, for example, that this has gone on too long. Up to this point, yes, but beyond it, no. You are going too far, or again, there is a limit beyond which you shall not go. In Every Day the Same Dream, you can say no to getting dressed for your job. "Where is your tie?" your boss asks absurdly to the player who lacks pants, a shirt, or anything else. It is the lack of the tie that is the offence. The player has said no to conformity, and to conformity means saying no to decency. In saying no, he has rebelled. His performative rebellion is unacceptable, however, and it could lose him his job. If accelerated leisure is the lifeblood of the corporate office, it is buoyed by those who say yes. Yes to peer pressure, to Friday night drinks, to drugs and prostitution and dance floors, and returning to the office at midnight, and office parties and cruises and cocktail evenings, and getting drunk with the boss and sucking up to superiors and talking down to juniors, and just one last email, and not having hobbies, and giving up on childish things, and drinking and drinking and drinking, and making everyone else drink too, and not drowning alone, and mental illness as identity, and ignoring the billion other ways that life has nothing to do with money. On the 20th of August 2013, Moritz Erhard was found dead in the shower of his London apartment after working 72 hours in a row. The American Merrill Lynch intern suffered an epileptic seizure. He was about to be offered a job at Bank of America. He was only 21 years old. One of the triggers for epilepsy is exhaustion, and it may be that because Moritz had been working so hard, his fatigue was a trigger for the seizure that killed him, said the coroner. What does it mean when our culture works someone to death? Interns can regularly clock up to 100 or even 110 hours a week. But people are fully aware that banking is hard work, and the company constantly reminds you to manage upwards in order to not overheat, an anonymous banker told CNBC. Overheat is an interesting word here. When bankers die on the job, they overheat. Humans are always presented as machines in this new corporate lexicon. We are resources to be allocated. We must leverage our capital to produce outputs. We must be productive, efficient, and hardworking, but we must not overheat. Every act of rebellion expresses a nostalgia for innocence and an appeal to the essence of being, writes Camus. The very moment the slave refuses to obey the humiliating orders of his master, he simultaneously rejects the condition of slavery. A machine is only a machine when it follows commands.